Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. Or so they say. But they are stupid. When you feel that you don't have the motivation to go to the gym, ask yourself, what would a bitch do? And then do the opposite.
All right. What's up, Bulldogs? Today I've got Jason Lamar here, who is somebody I've been watching his reels on Instagram and just it's I've liked the content. It's been really, really cool stuff to see, someone with really what I would say is the Bulldog mindset, just not accepting the victim mindset and giving delivering the message in a way that I think is pretty impactful to a lot of guys. So yeah, so welcome, Jason.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you having me, man. It was a great intro.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, your content's definitely it's controversial. It's inspiring though. I think it really a lot of guys like kind of to be given that. It's funny. I was telling one of my friends, or actually, I was telling my wife about this. I was like, yeah, if I a guy friend of mine, right? If I tell him stop being a fucking pussy, that's like saying I love you. You know what I mean? But you would saying that to a woman is obviously not, they're not wired the same way, right? They're more an encouragement. But a man, like, we like to be told, like, if you're telling someone the hard truth, that means that you really care about a person as a man, man to man. Yeah, yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, first and foremost, I think that a lot of men nowadays are very sensitive to the hard truths, which is a large part of the problem with society now. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I say all the time that if like people respond to something that I say sometimes tell me I'm not very compassionate or whatever, and I completely disagree. Like if I didn't care about people, then I wouldn't take the time to say something that would help them. And I think that the non-compassionate thing to do is what most people do, which is, oh, you're okay, or justifying their excuses or validating their feelings about whatever the case may be, because that's what everyone wants nowadays is some sort of excuse as to why it is that they are where they are or why they're not where they would like to be. And every time someone validates that, then that's kind of just giving them reinforcement that they're okay where it is that they are. They don't need to do the hard things to get better. And that's part of the problem. I think the non-compassionate, non-caring thing to do is to say, hey, no, you're okay, or it's fine that you're not doing better, or it's fine that you're fat, it's fine that you're poor, whatever the case may be. And I just want to touch on something that you said at the beginning. A lot of people have said something about my stuff being controversial, but quite honestly, I don't think that I say anything that is outside of the realm of logic. It's just truths that
Right.
people don't want to hear, so they call that controversial nowadays because people want to be coddled.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. And that is true. It's not really controversial in that way. It's just that yeah, people aren't used to hearing the raw truth and having it delivered in that way. It's funny because I totally agree with you. I was having this discussion with someone about exactly this because I was saying like as a coach, what I do, the hard thing I do is that I have to tell people the truth in love, right? In the sense that like I'm not against them as a person. I'm here to support you as a person, but I don't support your actions. And there's a difference because I think that a lot of people in life, it either goes one way or the other, right? So people will hate you because of your actions, or they will coddle you. They'll be like, they're so accepting, but the people who really love you are the people that can still care about you as a person, but then tell you now, it's like we're talking about, what is a controversial topic is someone, having a different, like saying, I want you to call me he or she now, or, change, like that whole, transgender type of thing. And it's like, I think people are like, oh, well, if you don't say someone's pronouns, then you're harming them, like you're not doing what they wish. And it's like I can have someone that says that's a she that says call me a he now, and I can say to that person, look, I love you, care for you. You know what I mean? I'm here for you to support you, right? However, I can help you. However, I'm not gonna say what you want me to say. Like, it doesn't mean I hate you. Doesn't mean I'm against you. I'm still here for you, right? You want to talk to me? Want to, I'll help you in any way I can, but I'm not gonna say that because I don't think what you're doing is good for you, right? It doesn't. And then people are like, oh, if you're not supporting a person, it's like, no, no. Like the truth of giving someone the actual truth, but still caring about that person, it's such a hard thing for people to do, but that's the real value.
Yeah, 1000%. And that's a great example of it right there because yeah, people think that that's a more controversial thing to do, but I look at it in the sense that if you have an uncle or grandfather or whatever who has some form of mental decline and he believes that his TV set is threatening him, right? And his TV set is trying to cause him some sort of harm. The loving, caring thing to do isn't to say, yes, your TV set is trying to kill you. It's that I understand that you're thinking these things, but maybe this is because you don't have the greatest grip on reality. You're not affirming someone's delusions isn't doing something great for them. You're not helping these people out because you're saying, well, you view yourself this way, so now I do too. And even if you wanted to go and take the route or the perspective that's not something of a delusion, okay, that's fine. But if you think that you're a comedian, it doesn't mean that I have to think you're funny. And if I don't find your jokes to be funny, I'm not doing you any favors by laughing at them just to appease you. Because in the comedian sense, at least, if you want people to think you're funny, then you need to work on your jokes better. And the best thing that I could do for you is say, hey, currently, no, you're not funny. That's not working for you. Or at the very least, I don't see it the way that you see it.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree 100% because you can, and it doesn't mean that you have to. I think a lot of people, like I said, they'll flip that switch and they're like, okay, well, if I don't like what someone's doing, I don't like this person either. And that doesn't get through to anyone either, right? It's like, yeah, we're all human. We all make mistakes. It's fine, but holding to your principles because I think that's one of the things is like we're missing so much in masculinity today is guys don't have principles. They're opportunists. You know what I mean? It's like having strong principles, and that's what I see in your content is that you've got these principles. Like this is the things that you believe in. Those things don't change over time. They don't change based on your circumstance. And I think that's something that we're sorely lacking today.
Yeah, people are afraid to stand up for anything or they want to make exceptions for every single little thing. And as soon as you start introducing exceptions to anything, what's completely meaningless now, right? So it's the lack of willingness to stand behind what it is that you believe in just because it hurts someone's feelings. Like it's been painted now that if something that you say makes someone feel unpleasant, then you need to change what it is that you're saying to accommodate their feelings, rather than thinking that maybe it's on this other person to look at themselves and think, well, why is what this person is saying offensive to me? Like I say all the time, if you weren't ashamed of being fat, nobody would be able to fat shame you. You see people online all of the time talking about the bodybuilders and how they look gross and stuff, and the bodybuilders aren't running around pouting about it because they worked very hard to look how it is that they look, and it's not for everyone. Everyone doesn't like it. And whenever I say that, people compare it to the body dysmorphia thing, but the body dysmorphia is internal. That's personal. It's not based on someone else's comments about you. But the fat shaming is based on how it is that other people view you. So you have a problem with how other people view you because you have a problem with how it is that you view yourself. If you were good with who it is that you are, then nobody can take that from you. Like people tell me all of the time that I don't know, I shouldn't have a nose ring or my tattoos look stupid or whatever. I don't care. I keep getting more. It's still
Right.
here because I like these things. I'm happy with this stuff. I'm good with who it is that I am. And most people aren't good with themselves because they don't want to do the work necessary to improve themselves or become the version of themselves that's in their head. So they try and find ways to convince themselves that they should be happy where they are.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The fat shaming is just a great example because, like you said, like I think a lot of people would be, they're offended when you say that it's not good to be fat or like that to acknowledge that they're fat, they're overweight, right? And it's like there I think there because a lot of people could use that they could use the fat shaming in a way where they say, oh, this person's fat, so I have hatred toward that person, and that's not what even though it's the words you're using, the language is harsh. It's not, you can tell, at least someone with some emotional intelligence can tell that it's not coming from a place of hatred. You don't hate fat people, you don't hate people that drink alcohol, you don't hate people that do drugs. You care about them. Actually, it's actually the opposite. It's like someone who accepts their actions when they're doing something that's harming themselves actually really hates the person. That's where the real hate, because it's ambivalence. I don't care about you at all. Like you can destroy yourself, but I'm going to say things that are politically correct in order to make myself look good, as opposed to doing something that risks my reputation in order to help you to actually, and very few, I think today, and that's why I think your message is so refreshing, is very few people hear the truth. That they don't, no one has the balls to tell someone the truth, and they don't get that in their life. And that's why I think a lot of guys subscribe to you, is because you're telling their friends aren't going to tell them, their families aren't going to tell them, but you'll tell them.
Yeah, and people need that, and I think exactly what you said about the political correctness. It's selfishness disguised as altruism, right? Because you think that you're a good person because you're running around telling people that they look okay, even though they're
Right.
300 pounds overweight, or that it's okay that they're doing drugs or getting drunk all the time, because that makes you feel good about yourself. Because now you could convince yourself that you're a good person, but you're actually harming these other people by, again, affirming what it is that they're doing and validating their own thoughts and excuses. You're preventing them from being a better version of themselves, so you can feel like you're a good person. So it's very misguided, and people just go along with it because it sounds nice, and everybody wants the thing that sounds nice. They want to believe that they're overweight because of their genetics or their hormones, not because they eat too much food and don't go to the gym. People want to believe that they're alcoholics and drug addicts because of their genetics, or their parent, or they have some sort of disease and their parents drank, so now they do too. But that no one wants to acknowledge that this is a choice. And exactly like you said, it's all a product of your habits, and you have full control over your habits. You don't have a great deal of control over much in the world, but your habits and your mindset are one. And your habits and your mindset are the only dictator of who it is that you're going to be as a person. Because you think like an alcoholic, you have the habits of an alcoholic, you're an alcoholic. That's how it is that it works. So it's not that about saying that anyone is a bad person specifically, it's that they are doing bad things.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that I think in the whole, identity politics that we have today, where people can't separate a person from their actions. And it's like, if you don't love the actions that someone's doing, then you must hate that person. And it's a false dichotomy. That's not true at all. Right. And that's why it's like, the whole thing about everything about acceptance, accepting all these things. It's like you accept the person, but you don't accept the actions, right? And I think it's just a hard thing for people to conceptualize today, because we are so polarized. We're all, and it happens on both sides, whatever, of the political spectrum, where you've got people that are like, I hate the other side. And it's like, I was just having this discussion with someone, and I was like, I don't hate the other side. I don't hate anybody, actually, but I hate ideologies that don't produce good results. And if a person subscribes to the ideology, they might have the characteristics that ideology produces, but I still don't hate the person. I still see them as not having awareness. But I think that's yeah, that's something that we're missing. Like in the victim mindset, just like you're saying, like everything you're describing, if you have any kind of if you're not if you're doing anything other than taking full personal responsibility for your life, you have the victim mind. Even if you have good excuses, if you have good reasons why things are the way that they are, if you haven't taken responsibility for it, it's still, you're still in the victim mindset.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the thing that gets lost with a lot of people, is that everyone knows that excuses are meaningless, but everyone also thinks that their excuses are the exception to the rule. And it doesn't matter how justifiable of a reason it is that you have for not doing whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing, or doing things that you know that you shouldn't be doing. Maybe you overeat because, like, people talk about their eating disorders a lot, and they had all of these experiences with food and their parents shaming them, or whatever the case may be growing up. It's like, okay, fine, I can understand how it is that you came to this conclusion, but the fact of the matter is you're still eating too much food and you still need to lose weight. No one is making you eat this food. No one's making you drink the alcohol. No one's making you sleep in and spend your days playing video games instead of working towards your goals. No one's making you see successful people and convince yourself that they either got handouts, or that they cheated, or something along those lines. They're stealing for people and they're evil. This all of this stuff is on you. It doesn't matter what it is that you point the finger at, because at the end of the day, the world that you live in is a reflection of who it is that you are. So all that you're really pointing down to, or pointing at, when it comes down to the very base level, is yourself.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think that it's like people have this narrative that it's their past trauma, or that like these things are outside their control. And one example I always use is, if you're if you're late, if your flight leaves without you, if you've got a flight schedule and it happens because you woke up too late and you didn't get there on time, or it happens because it's something completely outside of your control, that the traffic was horrendous, you were plenty early, but for whatever reason you missed the flight. Like, it doesn't matter, one excuse is good, the other one is bad, but either way you missed the flight. So so trying to make any kind of excuse, even if it's a valid one, it does you no good. It only makes sense to look at the future, and what you're doing right now, and to change those things, and take the responsibility, even if it's a really good excuse, to say, well, okay, that's, sometimes life happens, and sometimes you get kicked in the teeth, and that's fine. That's all part of life. It's not unfair. It's just part of life. So
Yeah, it's just what it is, and I believe that regardless of what it is that happened, it will only serve you to figure out what it is that you could have done differently. Maybe the traffic was bad. Yeah, sure, you don't have any control over the traffic, but you could have left earlier because you know that you don't have any control over the traffic. You know that accidents happen. You know that stuff pops up all of the time. You could have accounted for that. You could have set multiple alarms. You could have went to bed earlier. You could have done all sorts of different things. And while that won't change what it is that happened currently, it will prevent this from happening to you in the future. Whereas if you say that I was late for my flight because the traffic was bad, well, then you're always going to be beholden to whatever the traffic patterns may be that day, thinking that there's absolutely nothing that you could do to account for the fact that there might be more cars on the road.
exactly. Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I'm curious about kind of where you adopted this mindset because like I said, most people don't have that today. I think we actually have a very men today have a very feminine mindset of egalitarian. Like, it's like to see women thinking that, oh, okay, we should be nice to everyone and not say that like that makes sense for I think from a feminine perspective. But masculine, that's not how men operate. What have you always thought this way? What kind of shifted your mindset if something did?
Yeah, so I had a degree of the beliefs that I had for the entirety of my life, not as fleshed out and evolved, so to speak, as they are currently. But my dad would always say all of the time, one of his favorite sayings was, "It is what it is." And I've heard a lot of people say that they hate that saying because it's just accepting your situation. And it's not that. He never meant it that way. I never took it that way because the thing of like he smoked cigars, and when we lived in North Carolina, he would sit outside in the humidity and smoke his cigar. And my mother would always be like, "Well, how do you sit outside? It's so hot. It's so humid." He's like, "It is what it is because I want to smoke this cigar. I can't change the weather. So why am I going to worry about the weather?" So I've always had that with a lot of things, and even since I was a child, I had a very stripped down approach to how it is that I looked at things. Like I remember my mother used to smoke cigarettes that she was trying to quit one time when I was probably like 10 years old, and I said, "Well, why don't you just stop buying cigarettes, and then you can't smoke cigarettes anymore?" And she told me, "Well, it's not that easy." I was like, "Okay, well, I'm a child, I don't know anything." But then as I grew up, and when I used to smoke Black and Milds myself, and when I came to the time, I saw that I just stopped buying them, and then I couldn't smoke them anymore, no matter how much it is that I wanted to. And at a certain point, I came to where I was kind of just looking at my own life and figuring out why it was that I wasn't where it was that I wanted to be, and why I wasn't happy with the things that was going on and all of the bad stuff that happened to me. And in being able to take a true objective look, I was always able to come back and say, well, if I hadn't done this, then this wouldn't have happened. If I had done this, then this would have happened. So and I don't believe that I am a unique case in the sense that I'm the one and only person who is responsible for their own life, right? So what applies to one applies to all, and people seem to want to think that everyone is special and unique. Like somehow going to the gym doesn't work for some people, or eating less food doesn't work for some people. It's not the case. So if it works for me, it works for other people as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it's funny that you mentioned that. I love that we have Ozempic now because to me Ozempic proves right because people are like, oh no, it's just my metabolism. It's not that I don't eat too much. Well, Ozempic, the way it works is that it lowers your appetite. And all these people are losing weight on Ozempic. So it's like, okay, now the truth finally comes out. You can't deny it. It was because you ate too much. That's what it was. It wasn't some fucked up metabolism you had, some genetics. It wasn't any of these things. And so it's, yeah, people will hide behind those excuses. So then what kind of shift? I mean, well, what gave you the idea to like create the content, to start creating content? How long have you been doing that for? Yeah.
I've been creating content for about a year and a half now. And a little bit before that, maybe 2 years ago at the time, I had just got done. I used to do real estate investing, wholesaling, flipping houses, stuff like that. So I just got done doing that, and I was just making money, stocks and crypto. And I was making more money than I'd ever made before in my life, but I was kind of just sitting at home alone in my office, just there doing stuff. And I was like, man, I'm very unhappy and I'm very unfulfilled right now. And I spent so long telling myself that if I get to the point where I can work for myself and I can make X amount of money so that I don't have to worry about stuff, then everything will be good. And then I got there and it wasn't. So at that point, I realized that well, maybe the problem, because I wasn't happy in any of the things that I had done prior. I was always looking to the next thing. At that point, I came to the realization, well, maybe the problem is me and who it is that I am personally. So that kind of started me on a personal development journey, so to speak. And I'm a big believer that part of becoming the best version of yourself is helping other people become the best versions of themselves. So Nipsey Hussle, I don't know if it's his quote, but it's Nipsey Hussle who I heard say it: the highest human act is to inspire, and I very much believe that, and I think that it's everyone's duty to put some sort of good out into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I can echo that. At one point I was going to be a professional poker player and I was making good money playing poker. At one point I was trading options, and both of those roads I stopped doing because I was like, I'm not really contributing in any way. Like I'm making money, but is it really doing anything for anyone? I'm just moving money around as opposed to actually creating some kind of value in the world. So I agree with that 100%. It's interesting like without contribution, life as successful as your life can be, it feels pointless. So
Yeah, it's empty if you're not doing anything for anyone besides yourself. And that goes, yeah, you can make some money and you could take care of your own immediate family members and stuff like that as a but as a whole, I feel like it's you people inherently want to make some sort of contribution to the world or leave some sort of mark on society. And that looks like different things for different people. You know, people put out music that inspires people to be better. People write books that do the same, whether they be nonfiction or fiction, or I'm sure movies have changed some people's lives. Just whatever it is that you could do out there. I think that it is very selfish to keep knowledge that you have that has helped you, that you know that can help other people, to yourself. And however it is that you go about delivering that is on you. Obviously, I'm not saying that everyone needs to get up on stage and preach about something, but people complain all of the time about the hoarding of wealth, which is really just entitlement. But I believe that the true issue is the hoarding of wisdom.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting that I think a lot of people maybe are afraid to share because we've gotten to a place where like we were talking about, people are afraid of looking bad by sharing truths with people or what they know. So they kind of keep it to themselves and they they think one thing and do another, right? Or talk another thing. It's like, we saw that even in politics with the recent election where it's like all these people clearly there was a lot of people that didn't like the whole woke culture that was happening, but they're afraid to say anything, so it looked like that was the majority until it became safer. Now it's safer to so it's like people tend to be cowards. I guess that's to put it bluntly, but
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
oh, 1,000%. And the funny thing is, these are the same people who share the memes and stuff about they hated Jesus, so don't worry about them hating you or whatever. And it's
Right.
like, well, if you're thinking this, if you know this in the back of your mind, you should be living that way as well. Like you can't claim to be a believer of this type of thing, but when it comes to your own self, not be willing to put your reputation, yourself, your pride, whatever it is, out on the line to help other people because you're more worried about how it's going to make you feel.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what led to your mechanism of delivery, right? Because I guess I would say that there's not a lot of empathy, and I mean, at a surface level, right? Like I can see it, but I think a lot of people would be like, "This is harsh. Like this isn't the way to like convince someone or talk about these things." But yeah, what kind of led you to coming up with this way of a unique way of presenting this?
Yeah, so a lot of people have this thing with harshness, and I see people all the time. Well, there are studies that show that shame is bad, and people want to have this thing where you get rid of all guilt and shame. But if you have no guilt or shame, then you have no real morals or standards either. And I think that that's a great deal of the problem. And if you're truly uncomfortable somewhere, then you're going to move. Like a lot of people claim to not like their situation, but if you really didn't like what your situation was, you would change it because if you're truly uncomfortable, you do something about it. Like the same people who complain about being poor or fat or whatever, as soon as they get hungry, they want to go eat food because they're unwilling to tolerate their hunger. And if you were unwilling to tolerate your brokenness or your fatness the exact same way that you were unwilling to tolerate your hunger, you wouldn't continue to be broke and fat because you would do something about it. And me personally, I've always appreciated a more blunt and direct approach to stuff. Like I don't like all of the super soft and coddling things about, well, it's okay that you're this, but you could be better and all that rah rah nonsense. Like that's never resonated with me. So I assume that there are other people out there like myself who like to hear stuff the way it is that I like to hear stuff and would like to hear it delivered that way. And I know people get offended by it and they act like no one should hear it because they don't like how it sounds, but that is a selfish thing because some people prefer that. And if you just rob them of that in favor of what it is that you want to hear, you're robbing them of what it is that they're going to need to hear to better themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I do like that direct approach. Obviously, it's resonating with a lot of people that agree. Yeah. Just give it to me. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me what it is. Speaking of which, so uh, you talk about frequently that you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do drugs, right? What are the kind of like core principles that you have, like the things that you do not do, and when did you adopt these things into your life?
At various times throughout my life, kind of things I've picked up as I went on. Like I used to smoke a lot of weed when I was younger. I was never like a partier slash club goer. I drank from time to time, and mostly I actually found out a few years back that the definition of alcoholism isn't the frequency with which you consume alcohol, but rather the dependency on it and or using it as a coping mechanism. And the main times that I would drink is when I was upset about something. So like, I'm just gonna get drunk and I don't care about it anymore. So I dropped those a little while back when several years back now, but when I realized that they were unhealthy and again preventing me from being my best self. Like whenever I first started working out, I was still smoking weed, and then I would get high, and then the next day I'd want to need or it'd be time to go to the gym, and I'm still all sluggish and tired and all of that stuff. And I was just never motivated to do anything whenever it was that I was high. And I've also come to the belief that if you need some sort of mind altering substance, then you are not comfortable with who it is that you are. If you need something else to make you feel comfortable in your skin or feel good, then you're doing something wrong as a whole, and it's best to address those things rather than trying to cover it up and band-aid it. I think the same thing about depression meds and stuff, but I work out every day. I get up at the exact same time every day, 3:53. I believe I'm a big believer in the idea that if I say something that I have to do it. So in keeping my word to myself, and that kind of covers a lot of these other things without me having to individually flesh them out because I tell myself I'm going to do something and now it has to be done. Otherwise, I'm a liar and I don't want to be a liar to myself or others. So
Yeah, yeah, that's actually a really great concept and point. It's something I've talked about a lot in the past and kind of discovered for myself is that most of us have broken trust with ourselves, and so we don't believe the voice in our head that says you're going to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and go to the gym. It's like it doesn't mean anything anymore. We just ignore that voice. It's like we tell ourselves these things, and it's like one of the worst things you can possibly do is to no longer believe yourself and not trust your own self. And so we have to like reestablish trust with ourselves by making small commitments and following through. I remember one day I was recording a video when I was visiting Ireland. At literally I was on a treadmill at, I think it was 12 o'clock at midnight or whatever, 1 in the morning. And it's because it's my run day. And I was recording the video. I'm like people they think I'm crazy. Like, why are you running on a treadmill in the basement of this hotel in Cork, Ireland, recording this video? Why not just skip a day? Like, this is stupid. You're not going to get fat. But, and it's like, it's because no, because I said I'm going to do it. It's my commitment. It's because if I give myself let myself off the hook one time, then my word doesn't mean anything to myself. And so that was like, it's not about the running, it's not about the workout or the calories. It's about this important concept because I know once you break faith with yourself, man, all bets are off. You're no longer in control of your life.
yeah, 1000%. And I think that just once won't hurt is one of the most dangerous sayings that there is because it's true. If you skip one workout, nothing's going to happen. You overeat one day, nothing is going to happen. You put off your work till tomorrow, nothing is going to happen. And that's the problem is that you procrastinate and you see that nothing makes it happen. So, or nothing happens, excuse me. So you're telling your subconscious that it's okay to put these things off. And then whenever things get difficult, you put them off and then you continue to do so. And that's how you become a procrastinator. That's how you become someone who went to the gym every day to someone who used to be in shape. And like, well, I used to bench 315 back in high school. Okay, cool. But what happened? So it's all of those little little things when you let yourself off the hook and you show yourself that you don't have to do what it is that you say that winds up being harmful. It's not the individual things that you miss, it's the mindset and thought process that missing these things and being okay with it cultivates.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it, I would say, can be encompassed about just being a good parent to yourself, right? Because we're usually bad parents to ourselves, right? We abuse ourselves. We say bad things about ourselves, get down on ourselves. And it's like, instead of just making us have consequences and following through with the consequences, right? It's like you say you're going to do something. What's the consequence? Like I've got, sets of rules for myself I create, and there's always a consequence, right? For the thing. I'm doing actually the 75 hard program now, and I love it because there's a consequence. If you fuck up, you start over at day zero, right? If there's no consequence, that whole program would not work. No one would do it because they'd be like, okay, well, I missed one day, but I'll just move on to the next day. But if there's a hard and fast rule that says, no, if you mess up, you start over at day zero. Well, shit, now there's a consequence for this thing, and I can't let myself off the hook. I mean, as long as you're holding to that, and that's what I think we're lacking is being good parents to ourselves. We punish, we don't discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say all the time, like if most people were in a relationship with someone who treats them the way that they treat themselves, like you would consider that to be abusive. If someone talked to you the way that you talk to yourself, or if someone lied to you as much as you lie to yourself, you would consider, nowadays you call them a narcissist or gaslighting you and all of
Right.
this stuff. So why are you okay with doing it? Why are you okay with downing yourself and talking negatively to yourself all day? Why are you okay with breaking the promises that you make to yourself? You told yourself you were going to do something, and then you come up with all of the excuses in the world to not do it. Like if someone else treated you that way, you wouldn't, or at the very least, you shouldn't tolerate it. So you most certainly shouldn't tolerate it from yourself. And at the end of the day, how you treat yourself is going to be how it is that you treat everyone else. If you can't keep your word to yourself, who are you really going to be able to keep your word to? You don't even care about you. So what you say doesn't matter to you. Why should it matter to anyone else? You can't even follow through when you said you were going to do something to better your life. So, how committed are you really going to be to following through to benefiting someone else's life when it becomes difficult or when it becomes inconvenient or when it's a thing that you don't truly want to do? So, but most people only want to do what it is that feels good because they're short-sighted. But all of the stuff that feels good in the moment and in the now winds up being bad for you long term.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. The short-term gratification is something that we're addicted to in society today, especially men, young men. I feel like there's a lack of pride, right? And kind of touching back on what you said before uh, about like for example, I don't drink. Neither my wife or I drink. We stopped drinking 2.5 years ago. Realized like I could control my alcohol, wasn't a big deal, but I saw so many people destroying their lives with alcohol, and I'm like, what is this? This is just poison that I'm literally my body is trying to rid myself of this poison. I was like, I don't want to participate in this at all anymore, because even if it doesn't hurt me or whatever, obviously it still hurts you, but uh, that's it's hurting other people. And what it kind of made me realize too is that it's like one philosophy that I've held on to is that it's not what you do, it's why you do it that matters, right? And it's like, most of the people that are doing these things, and I used to smoke as well, I quit doing that, right? It's like they're doing these things just like you said because they need them. It's a crutch. And so when you're doing things as a crutch, that thing now becomes destructive to you because it's weakening you because you're less strong without that thing. So I think that's a really important point of it is that it's not what you're doing, it's why you're doing these things. And a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is like why they're doing it. It's not what they say it is, it's because of they're using it as a crutch.
Yeah, but they don't want to admit that to themselves. They'd rather tell them, well, I'm just having fun, or this is just a part of living life, or there's something wrong with their brain chemicals, so you need all of the depression meds. But like it's like it's the same premise as if you were to get shot and the doctor gives you painkillers, then you're not going to feel the pain of the bullet anymore, right? But there's still a bullet in you. That's what the actual problem is. And when you take your depression meds or your alcohol or your weed or whatever the case may be, you're just you're taking away the pain of the problem without fixing what's actually causing that pain. Like the pain is a notifier. It's not the actual issue. But that's what most people have been told to believe. Like you feeling bad about something, you feeling anxiety about something, you feeling whatever the case may be about something, that's not the problem. The problem is what's making you feel that way. And that's what it is that needs to be addressed. Like people just want the feeling to go away, but you should be focusing on the cause of the feeling. You should be trying to put out the fire in your house rather than trying to shut off the fire alarm.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's funny. A lot of the guys I coach, and I used to do kind of game, pickup coaching and stuff back in the day, and it'd be like no alcohol, but a lot of guys would say, "Oh, I have social anxiety," or it's either they either tell me I have social anxiety or I have autism, right? And I'm like, everyone does. That's my answer. It's like everyone does. Like, if you're not like literally staring at blocks like autism where you can't, you see people that really can't function. Okay, yeah, they clearly have the diagnosis. But if you're like, I'm on the spectrum, I'm like, I don't care. Like, even if it exists, I don't care because it's still bullshit. It's like maybe you're gonna have to work 10 times harder than someone else. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But like social anxiety, it's everyone has it. Like the people who don't have it are the people who have overcome it, right? They've chosen that path. No one was born with no social anxiety. They somehow in their life have overcome this thing, but we tend to label ourselves and be like, oh, I have depression, I have social anxiety, I have ADHD, whatever it is. And so then that label becomes an excuse, it becomes the identity as opposed to just something that you need to work through and struggle with. Or like you said, they mask it, right? So get rid of the symptoms, and then you never address the cause.
Yeah, and people have been convinced that all of these very normal things are some sort of issues it is that they're having. Like you can't focus, so something's wrong with you. Like that's not true. Like if you look at the symptoms of it, where they're like, you can't focus on things that don't interest you. Like, well, duh. Like, what do you? That's not
Right.
only being interested in things you like doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It just means you don't have the discipline to pay attention to the things that you're less interested in. Or being socially anxious, it's not that there's something wrong with you, it's that you're aware that you should be doing something better. Like you feel awkward because as a whole you're not good with who it is that you are. Again, going back to the fat shaming thing, you're not comfortable with yourself, how it is that you speak, how it is that you dress, how it is that you move, present yourself, whatever the case may be. And those are all things that you can work on. So rather than just trying to get the feeling to go away by getting drunk, you can work on all of those things and then get the feeling to go away because there's no reason for you to feel that way anymore. Then you don't need the alcohol. Then you don't need all of these other drugs and outside substances to make you feel like a normal person because you could just make yourself into that normal person.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't have that pain, then you're never going to address the issue, right? It's like your needs will always be met. People always get their needs met, but if you meet a need at a lower level, it's never going to get met at a higher level. The same thing with pornography and right. It's like, guys that are addicted, and don't want to quit that. It's like, well, okay, the reason why you also can't get laid and go out and get a girlfriend is because if you had no other option besides to go find a real woman, like if you didn't just have your computer screen, then you would have more motivation to go out and figure it out, overcome the social anxiety, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were talking about before, if you're truly uncomfortable with something, then you'll change it. Like if you're not happy where it is that you are, then you have no choice but to fix it. And all of these things, exactly like you said, are lesser solutions to the problem. It's the most visible and easy one. Like you're uncomfortable with your desires or your libido or whatever, so you turn to some pornography. But if you take away the easy solution, then you could go and to get to the actual solution. And a lot comes with that as well. You make yourself into a better person so women are interested in you and want to talk to you, or you make yourself into a better person so you're not all out of place and awkward at the wherever it is that you're at that's making you feel socially anxious. Like there's solutions to all of these things, and it's never the thing that's most easy and readily available to you, but that's what you're sold because people are inherently lazy and just want to go to the easiest thing. That's why everyone loves the drive-through, right? Because they don't want to cook the food, and it's the immediate solution to the problem that they need food. But rather than it's also the more detrimental one to them, rather than going to the grocery store, getting some sort of healthy food and some proteins and some good carbs and some fats and some vegetables and making a good meal at home. They just want to go grab a double cheeseburger at McDonald's or whatever and solve their problem immediately.
Exactly, exactly. Now, what do you think about the whole red pill type of movement? Like what's your kind of thoughts on that and everything going on with like Andrew Tate and whatnot and that kind of manosphere?
So so to preface this, I know Andrew Tate more as a someone who's been labeled a conspiracy theorist than anything to do with any sort of red pill stuff. So I'm not super familiar with what the whole red pill thing is, but from what I've seen of it, it looks like a lot of bitter men blaming women for their problems, and I also see a lot of what appears to be people complaining about women having standards because they don't happen to have any for themselves, and they complain that women want men in shape or who make a certain amount of money or whatever, and that's unfair. Rather than saying, well, this is what it is that they want, so maybe I should go get in shape and go make more money. Or it's also finding excuses like people recently in recent years is the first time I've ever been introduced to this, but apparently there's a whole thing where like if you're under 6 feet then that's a problem in life and women don't like you, and I've never been aware of that. I'm 5'8" for reference, but I've never experienced that. I never knew that was a thing that people had an issue with, was the height as a whole, until I got on the internet and see these people talking about
No.
stuff.
Yeah.
It's just an excuse, and at the end of the day the problem isn't that you're not 6 feet. The problem is that you're a loser. Like if you were 6'4", you just be a really tall loser. So if you're someone who's looking for your height to give you some sort of advantage in the world, unless you want to be a basketball player. But outside of that, it doesn't really matter. What matters more is who it is that you are as a person. And I've done business with people taller than myself. I've talked to women taller than myself. I've done all kinds of things with people taller than myself, and no one has ever cared until I got online and see a bunch of weirdo no profile pictures sitting there complaining about their height and talking about everyone else's height. And it's another one of those excuses that people love for things that they can't affect.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. The red pill stuff it used to be about facing the reality of life and women and then accepting that reality. But now it's become this whole whine. It's become basically feminism, the complaints that men had about feminists because they're whiny and they're saying things are unfair and they're, victim mindset. But then now men have adopted this victim mindset. It's so funny. I do a podcast with my wife. It's called Better Than Perfect, where we talk about essentially, our relationship is a masculine feminine one where I'm the man, I'm in charge, right? She's the woman, she's feminine. We have, the best relationship because of that. But so many guys get so upset by me calling men to a high standard and saying, oh, you gotta, for example, you pay for a woman on a date. And they're like, oh, what if she's using me? And I'm like, there's like you have to be think so highly of yourself that you would never imagine that someone would use you for a meal like that. How low do you value yourself if you think that people would use you for a meal, right? It's like, or if you think it's a lot of money, then hey, maybe you need to be making more money, right? Instead of worrying about these things. But I see it so much today. It's just men that have no pride in being a man. Yeah, I mean, do you see that same thing where it's like there's just no pride in doing things because they're hard.
Not even a little bit of pride anywhere left, and I think that's a huge problem. And people have this thing where pride is evil and pride is terrible and pride is bad, but it's the person who has some sort of pride in themselves who goes out there and makes the most of themselves and does stuff for them to be proud of. It's the person who has pride in themselves who refuses to walk around being 400 pounds, or who refuses to spend their time online complaining about the fact that women don't like them, and wants to do something about it rather than just whining. Like it's the lack of pride that has people on there complaining about everything else that goes on in the world. It's the lack of pride that has people insisting that the answer to their problems is for everyone else to lower their standards so that they don't have to raise their own, or they want the bar to be lowered rather than having to go to rise to the occasion to get to it. And the what they don't realize is at the end of the day, the only real form of accomplishment is having earned something or having worked for something. Like if you're just given stuff, it doesn't matter. Like no one cares about it. It's just stuff now. But when you were once poor, or when women once used to hate you, or you were once out of shape and then you get into shape or you make more money or women like you now, you have the feeling of accomplishment, and you can look at yourself with pride and say, man, look at all of these things that I did. Look at all of the things that I've overcome. Look at who it is that I've made myself into. And that's what really matters at the end of the day. Like being in shape isn't as relevant as knowing that you have made yourself into someone who is in shape, or making money or having money isn't as relevant as knowing that you've made yourself into into someone who can have money. And people just want the handouts without realizing, first of all, it doesn't work. Like you see people win the lottery and they mess up all of the money. You see people get their gastric bypass surgeries and they gain all of their weight back because they didn't learn how to be the type of person who could handle it. And that's the real goal, is to become the person who can handle these types of things. Like all of the achievements and the acclaim and rewards and whatnot is a byproduct of who it is that you are.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I love the philosophy or the motto of I don't want anything I haven't earned. Right. I remember one time I was talking to a coaching client of mine, and used to have my marathon medals and stuff on the wall. And I took one because he was just whining about his life. And I took one of the medals and I was like, look, I was like, do you want this marathon medal? I can send it to you. And he was like, well, why? And I was like, well, because then you can like feel like you can have the medal, right? It's like, isn't that the value of it? And I was like, I could engrave your name on there and put a time on there. And he was like, well, no, it wouldn't be valuable to me. And I was like, well, why not? I mean, you got the medal, as it says you ran a marathon. He's like, well, because I didn't actually run the marathon. And I was like, oh, so you don't want stuff like so something isn't valuable to you unless you've actually earned it. And I think, then why are you telling me you want it easy? You want women to it'd be easy for you to get women. You want it easy for you to get money. Like you just want it handed to you when you know that that's not actually what you want. You wouldn't be happy. Otherwise, you would just take this marathon medal. I'll ship it to you, and you can say, you can have that and hang it on your wall. You know what I mean? And but I think so many people don't realize that. They think that by getting the thing that they're going to be happy, but then it's like the method in which you achieve the thing is also determines how you enjoy it or not. And it's like, you get the stuff and then you're not happy because you don't feel like you earned the thing.
Yeah, and I think that inherently everyone knows this because like you see a news story that someone won the lottery and no one's like, "Oh my God, what's their life story?" They just have money now. No one cares. But if it was just about the money, then you would be just as interested in their life story as you were the person who used to be super poor and now started a multi-billion dollar company. But you're not, because you know that what really matters is that they earned it. Like people love seeing underdog stories, but don't want to be the underdog themselves. They just want to have everything given to them and they just want everything to be easy and simple. Like, if you go play a video game or if you watch a TV show or you watch a movie, all of those are predicated on people encountering and overcoming problems. So otherwise, there's no entertainment, there's no enjoyment in it. What fun is it to watch some people sit around a table having a perfectly lovely conversation where everyone agrees and nothing goes out of the ordinary? It's just, well, this is super boring. Or you play a video game and everything is just, you could just do everything. You don't have to, however they work now, level up your powers or whatever the case may be. Like there's no enjoyment in that. The enjoyment is overcoming the things, but no one wants to apply it to their own life. They just want to be given stuff, and then they get a problem-free life, and then they wind up with these problems like, I'm depressed now, or I have childhood trauma, because inherently in your mind you want something to struggle against, and when you're not giving it to yourself, you come up with stupid stuff like, oh, I'm sad sometimes, or my birthday sucked when I was 12.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. People don't realize that that investment is so important, and that's what actually, and I've been guilty of this myself, right? When I first achieved my first goals in life, that I thought I could become financially free, I did real estate investment, and I became free, and I was miserable because it wasn't about like it wasn't about the destination. I thought that if I got there, then I would finally be happy, and I was actually the most miserable because it's always just improving yourself, growing is what actually leads to fulfillment and happiness in life. Um, but tell me about kind of where do you see things going? Well, actually, let me ask you this. I think this is even more relevant. Is young guys, right? Because this is what I'm most concerned about. Just the mindset is so fucked right now. Like I said, no pride. What do they need to do if they're hearing this message? Like, how do they turn things around? What's the message you would give them?
Yeah, so the most important thing I always say is accountability. Wherever it is that you are currently or whatever it is that you're going through is your fault. It doesn't matter if you could come up with some compelling reason why it's not, it's your fault. And it doesn't serve you to think otherwise, because whenever you assign blame, you also assign the power to change. So in accepting that you've put yourself where it is that you are, then you're also accepting that you have the power to get yourself to someone else, to somewhere else. If you were capable of fucking up your life, then you're also capable of fixing it. So The first thing is accepting that wherever it is that you are is on you. Second thing, everyone says that it's everyone's favorite quote, the no one's coming to save you thing. But I believe that no one can save you, regardless of how much of a pity party that you throw. Because just like we've been talking about before, someone could come and give you millions of dollars. And if you're not the type of person who can handle millions of dollars, you're gonna fuck it up and be broke again. Someone could come and wave a wand and make you in the shape that you want to be. But if you're not the type of person who's cultivated the necessary discipline and habits to maintain that, you're just going to wind up being a fat ass again. So everything is your fault. You need to understand that you are the only one who can better your situation. And there are countless ways to do so. All you have to do is pick a path and walk it consistently every single day, no matter what, no matter how it is that you are feeling, no matter what it is that's going on, no matter what excuses that you could possibly come up. All you need to do is continuously go towards your destination. And regardless of how long it will take you, you will get there. The time is going to pass no matter what. Whether it's going to take you 5 weeks or 5 years, it will be 5 weeks or 5 years from now. So the only question is, do you want to be 5 weeks or have 5 less weeks to get to where it is that you are going, or be 5 weeks closer to get to where it is that you were going?
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think taking the accountability for your life of not blaming is so key. There's so many great excuses that we can all come up with in our lives, but it's like once you start saying that no excuse is good enough for me, yeah, I have a standard I'm going to meet, then yeah, that's when things tend to change. Are there any good books you'd recommend, or books that have influenced you, or are you much of a reader?
Yeah, so The Slight Edge, I don't know if
Mm,
you've read that, is the book that kind of got me started on my path of I could do whatever it is that I would like to do as long as I do the individual steps towards it every single day. So that's always my first recommendation, Slight Edge. And then any form of Stoic philosophy. I like Discourses by Epictetus. Meditations is good too, by Marcus Aurelius. So any form of that that's going to help you get your mind right. And then there's another one. It's I think it's called The Power of the Subconscious Mind, that is
okay.
about the importance of your thoughts and how it is that you talk to yourself. Because what exists in your head, you will create in reality, regardless of what that is, good or bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of, actually, my favorite of Stoic writing is Seneca's letters to Lucilius.
Mm.
I like to go through that. There's so much good wisdom there. But yeah, Stoic philosophy is so powerful. I think that was one of the things that really changed my life, is realizing that it's not just a philosophy, it is the philosophy. It is the fundamental truth, because we all have to deal with it. And if we are subject to the external, then we never can control the external. So we have to find a way to master ourselves to control the internal. So I think, yeah, I think that's super, super powerful.
Yeah, that's absolutely one of the, if not the most important thing. Is, and people take stoicism and they take it as it's unhealthy or emotionally intelligent or something along those lines, because they're, well, it's okay to be all of these things. It's okay to be sad and frustrated and angry and mad. And it's not specifically that it's not, but it's the labeling of things that just are as problems when you have the ability to view it however it is that you like. Like there's no sense in crying over spilled milk. That's an old saying. It's a cliche, but it's
Yeah,
a cliche for a reason. Like you can't undo something that's been done, and you can only control what it is that you could control. And while you can't control all outside events or things that happen to you, you can control how it is that you view what took place and what it is that you do moving forward from it. And the person who has a positive viewpoint of a negative scenario will always have the better chance at coming out on top of that. Like they have scientific studies that say people who have more positive attitudes about their cancer diagnosis tend to do better with their cancer, because all of it starts in the mind. Like even if you take two people and both of them get shot and one of them says, I'm going to be good and I'm going to come out stronger from this, and the other one's like, man, this is terrible, I'm going to die, and you were a betting man, who would you bet on surviving? Like it's the person with the positive attitude towards stuff, and that will take you so much farther than any of the rest of this stuff will, and you sitting there and wanting to be sad and feel your feelings all of the time, because there's no utility in it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, a lot of people misunderstand Stoic philosophy, and it's actually harder. There's you can close your heart and have your emotions going everywhere and splattering on everyone else, just expressing your anger and your sadness and whatever, and throwing a pity party. or you can numb yourself where or actually, I guess in the first one, your heart's open, but it's like your actions are led by your emotions. But you can numb yourself and not feel anything and just be kind of the stoic that I think people think of, where it's like I've just shut out all emotion, and that's also a cop out. It's a weak way to go. You maybe you're not experiencing pain, but you're not experiencing love either. Like you're just shielding yourself, protecting yourself. Whereas you can do what I call the feel the pain and keep on walking, where you're experiencing all these emotions. Yeah, maybe even you're feeling anger at times, or sadness, or whatever it is, but you're feeling it, but it's not influencing your action. You're still going doing the thing, and I think that's that powerful place to be, and that's really what Stoic philosophy is telling us to achieve, not to become where we don't feel anything. It's the hard thing is to feel the thing and then do opposite of it, not to allow your feelings to control you. And that's really the value in it. Because once you master that skill, then everything becomes attainable.
Yeah, 1000%. And it's the yeah, you could feel sad. There's nothing wrong with feeling sad. You don't have to cure it. And it's always the people who run around swearing that it's okay to be sad and all of that stuff, who want to go to therapy to figure out 87 different ways to cope with their sadness. But like, if you thought this was okay, why are you trying to fight it off? You don't need methods to cope with your happiness. You don't need to go analyze why it is that you were laughing to figure out why that is. So why can't you treat sadness the same way that you treat happiness? Why can't you treat grief the same way that you treat joy? Like, it's a feeling, you're feeling it, and you take what you need from it, and you adjust accordingly and keep going. But you don't have to let these things dictate your actions. And furthermore, whatever it is that you focus on is going to grow. So when you get sad and you sit there be like, oh, I'm sad, I'm gonna throw on my favorite sad movie and eat my sad food and wear my sad clothes, all you're doing is prolonging and highlighting and exacerbating your sadness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. You can feel the thing, process the thing, let it pass through you, and then you move on. But yeah, when you dwell in that, then absolutely you're going down into that wormhole, and you're creating a pit for yourself that makes it hard to. I think that's where a lot of people get into that whole depression, where it becomes such it's their identity, but they've allowed themselves to slip further down. It's like I always think about that, and many times I'm looking over the abyss, and I'm not going to fall into the abyss, right? I could if I allow myself to go down this path, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stop myself here and say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to fall over that line, because once I do, then it'll be harder to get out, because it is harder to get out once you allow yourself to get into that state.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, once you wind up so far, the farther you wind up down something, the harder it is to get back up to the top. That's how things work. But and then people want to go, and rather than, like you said, feeling it and moving on, they want to try and fight it off. But also trying to fight these things off also makes them more powerful. Like, there's the thing where they say, if you can't not think about the pink elephant if I tell you to think about the pink elephant, right? And you sit there trying not to think about the pink elephant. Well, that pink elephant is just going to exist in your mind. But if you just go on about your day, eventually it will leave your mind on its own. Like, it will go on its way while you're doing other stuff. Like, you don't have to focus on it and give it that sort of power over you. Because all you're doing is, again, giving it power and increasing its strength. The more that you focus on it, the more that you try to get rid of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Jason, I appreciate you taking the time to join me on this, and yeah, I think a lot of guys are going to find this valuable. Where can people find you? What's kind of the best way to follow you?
Yeah, I'm the Jason Lamar on all platforms that I could think of, or that I'm on, period. And then I also have a podcast with Ransom. I'm not sure if you're familiar. He's a rapper, been around for a long time, but Game Within a Game on all platforms as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check out the podcast. But yeah, no, it's great to get your insights on this, and keep on doing what you're doing. And yeah, we'll have to sync up again sometime. Where are you based out of, by the way?
I'm in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, I'm in San Diego. So
Nice.
yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thanks again for joining me, and see you guys later.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me.